Starting now and going through the weekend, if you go to our merch store on Teespring and use the code HOLIDAY20, you can get 20% off all your purchases there. We've got no bullshit t-shirts, sweaters, mugs, stickers, and much more in multiple colors and designs too, including the classic NoBS logo right here, looking good. So click the link below and order now, and you could even get your swag in time for Christmas, depending on your location and availability. All the info you need is down in the description below this video, so thanks for your time, and now on to the show. Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about the Victoria's Secret fashion show, which has finally given in and canceled itself due to consistent backlash coming from the woke social justice warrior crowds. For those who don't know, the Victoria's Secret fashion show is an annual show sponsored by and featuring Victoria's Secret, a brand of lingerie and sleepwear for women. Victoria's Secret uses the show to promote and market its goods in high-profile settings. The show is pretty much a lavish event with elaborate costume lingerie, varying music by leading entertainers, and set design according to the different themes running within the show. The show attracts hundreds of celebrities and performers, with special guests and acts every year too. Each year, 20 to 40 of the world's top fashion models are selected to perform in the fashion show. In a typical year, this includes about a half dozen women under contract to the company known as Victoria's Secret Angels. These angels are pretty hot too, to say the least, and many red-blooded American males like myself always look forward to this event and appreciate the effort of these girls and their show year after year. But with all that said, I think if you've been paying attention lately, you might start to see why the leftists would be rallying against this. Not only are they known to hate pretty women like these models, but also they tend to see women like this who dress up and get all sexy for these shows as being taken advantage of. Modeling and trying to be pretty is a sexist act now, according to the SJWs, at least in some situations that they don't approve of. Sure, they're also very sex positive and open to people wearing skimpy clothes when it comes to gay pride events, for example, where at those we see LGBTQ alphabet people running around the streets half naked, promoting their degenerate lifestyles with children present often. But if women dress up in lingerie, mostly to sell underwear to other women, well, that's a problem for the left for some reason. Probably because in this situation, the women are usually trying to look good for their men, and they're dressing up to please their partners in heterosexual relationships. In addition, we also specifically went over another reason these Victoria's Secret models have been under attack when this similarly happened around this time last year. Last November, we made a video about how these wild, extremely jealous liberals were starting to skinny shame these Victoria's Secret models now. You see, nowadays, according to them, you can't make fun of anyone for being fat, or you will be called a fat shamer. But calling out and skinny shaming professional models who are hired to be this way, well, that's all the craze right now. At least it is in left-wing circles. This also goes along with them hating pretty people because they're jealous that they're not good looking like us. This meme has even gotten so bad, we're seeing a new wave of bigger plus-size models getting propped up all over the place too. Tess Holliday is a pretty famous big girl model out there right now, and there's also that bloated black chick who's been seen in the new Calvin Klein ads too. Put this all together and I think you guys get the point. Skinny and beautiful models are bad now, and big and disgusting ones are what are getting promoted and propped up, at least when it comes to wild liberals trying to ruin everything we like and everything good in our society. With all that said, the SJWs are certainly not taking this victory of theirs with grace. No, they're pretty much souring their win by gloating and bragging and throwing it back in all of our faces. Here's one example of that in the form of an article from BuzzFeed that's called "No One's Gonna Miss the Victoria's Secret Fashion Show. Victoria's Secret wanted to make its yearly fashion show a feminist endeavor. No one was buying it." And well, I think those models might miss it because now they're out of a job this year. And the people who used to watch it will miss it too, which included millions and millions who watched it every year. And also, this is a pretty bold title and subtitle to say the least. First of all, I'm not trying to pretend I was a huge fan of this show myself, or I even watched it very much at all, but I will stand up for their right to have it and not be made fun of for it. And I will support any chance I have of seeing hotties on TV and the internet wearing sexy lingerie like this if they want. This fashion show was also a bit of a tradition, and the Victoria's Secret Angels are part of the American zeitgeist, so yeah, seeing the left attack attack that because they hate fun and pretty people in America, well, that's super lame. As for the show trying to go feminist just before it got canceled, well, trying to go full SJW to please these haters would have never worked anyway, because it's never enough for them and they'll still attack you when you cave in. Now, I understand they thought maybe trying to pander could save their show, but in this case, canceling was the better option. Now, let's go ahead and read on and see where this loud and proud BuzzFeed writer goes with this new article. After 24 years, the Victoria's Secret fashion show has been canceled. A true loss. No footage of leggy blondes and brunettes and like 3 or 4 black women trotting down a long runway this Christmas, flirting with the grown baby Shawn Mendes or nearly knocking Ariana Grande over with a 15-pound feathered wing. What will we do? Probably literally anything else. The Victoria's Secret fashion show started in 1995 as a much simpler version of the winged-out glittery monstrosity it had morphed into over the last decade. Back then, it was a subdued fashion show on a plain stage, supermodels showing off high-waisted underwear and bras and little wraps tied around their narrow hips. Sounds like this chick's jealous already. But even as the production changed and expanded, the look of the models largely stayed the same. All very thin, very tall, very conventionally beautiful. Or, you could just call that beautiful. They're good looking. Don't try and sugarcoat it. None of the models have been plus size or gender non-conforming. The show's efforts at diversity have been limited, but I suppose worth pointing out. Naomi Campbell and Tyra Banks, 2 of the most famous models in the industry, both first walked the runway in 1996, and many times after that. In 2009, Louis Wen became the first Chinese model to appear in the show. In 2018, Winnie Harlow, a black model and their first angel with Vitiglio, walked the runway. That same year, Kelsey Merritt became the first Filipina model to walk. Sounds like this BuzzFeed writer is pretty obsessed with pushing diversity into this, and she's also pretty jelly of what she calls conventional beauty. I love how they spell out all these first times with the minorities here, trying to act like it's a win for each of these minority groups, but that's assuming this is a good and great and positive thing for the show. It may seem that way to a brainwashed, totally unself-aware leftist, but we all know by now that adding black or brown people and forcing them into things to appease the SJWs doesn't really mean the product is getting any better. Actually, it usually means the opposite. Not that it's getting worse because there's minorities there, but the whole production and the outcome is worse because they're forcing diversity unnecessarily. This writer, whose name, by the way, is Scotchy Cowell, I believe that's how it's said, well, we can find out a lot about what she's writing here and why, and where she got her viewpoint of hers if we just look into her background a little bit. Clearly, she's a BuzzFeed writer already, and that's going to dock her some points. That's a terrible start, but also, this writer is Canadian, and in addition, she contains all the traits she's pushing onto this fashion show right now. Not only is she some kind of brown minority, probably Indian, but also, she's not the typical slim, model-esque body type, let's say, to put it nicely. Basically, just like every other leftist out there, they're trying to squeeze in more people like themselves who are either minorities, ugly, overweight, or terrible people, and they want to push them into mainstream media. This is because they're all very self-centered and self-important too, and they love raining on other people's parades and making things all about them in the process. Slowly, the show transformed into something louder and flashier, while still maintaining its roots as a lingerie store for women created by men. After all, its co-founder Roy Raymond started the company in the late 70s after feeling like a creep when he was shopping for lingerie for his wife. It is my sincerest hope that most men now know that many women are often equipped to buy their own lingerie and would perhaps rather be gifted an elegant pen. That just sounds silly. No one's saying women can't buy lingerie. It's a gift and you're giving it to them so they don't have to. The 2002 show kicked off with cameras asking regular people, namely men, what they thought about Victoria's Secret and its models, leading to a bunch of firefighter dudes pointing at a catalog and excitedly saying, yeah, right there. Earlier versions of the show we're familiar with were clearly catering to straight men. I guess to be fair, the internet was pretty new, and men had to do a bit of work to look at images of half-naked women. Lo, how far we've come. Wow, we've really got a live one here. First of all, there's nothing wrong with a company created by men that also wants to cater products to women. I'm sure this girl would think it's totally okay if a woman owned a male product making company like, say, men's clothes or shaving products. I'm sure that would be okay, but vice versa it's not, because these guys have bad double standards. And sure, I'll give her credit. A female at the helm of a female product making company could help with some personal insights and experience, but at the same time, dudes can pull it off too, and there's nothing wrong with it or sexist about it. And guys have run female product making companies for generations as well. Really, we're just getting back to this writer's hubris here, and her excessive need to make things all about her. Her being a woman, a minority, and not very good looking, which is exactly the opposite of how a typical Victoria's Secret angel model looks, so of course she's going to hate them and attack them and call them offensive and racist. racist. It's in her Canadian liberal-dominated blood cells. They're screaming inside of her, telling her to attack Americans and white people and take away all the things we love. As for the part about men buying lingerie for their wives, well, yeah, that's obviously still a thing. Many couples, young and old, we love to get cool gifts for our partners, and particularly, men often love to get sexy things for their wives to wear. Nothing wrong with this either. In fact, many hot wives enjoy it just as much as the dudes. Girls like the attention and the gifts, and people in general like to look good sometimes because looking good makes you feel good. But again, not to dog on this writer too much, but she probably knows nothing about any of this. I doubt she's even been in many relationships, let alone something long-term that would warrant her partner to buy her such gifts. And even if they did, she apparently would rather get an elegant pen than some sexy clothes. Fine, no biggie, but let's not pretend it's because you're some smart and deep and better than everyone else type person. Really, it's because you're insecure about the way you look. And that's also why this writer lashes out at others that are better looking than her, like the Victoria's Secret fashion show and its models. At the show's best in 2001, its broadcast debut garnered more than 12 million viewers. Andrea Bocelli performed, sure, why not? But trouble began brewing in the last few years, presumably because viewers, namely its female ones, started to get bored. The models all looked the same, the fashion was bizarre, unwearable, and uninteresting. Demand for more diversity in its casting began to reach a fever pitch. Its 2018 show netted only 3.3 million viewers, its lowest ratings ever, a steep drop from the 5 million viewers just the year before. But Victoria's Secret isn't even trying to give its customers and viewers lip service when it comes to diversity. In 2018, the company's then president Ed Razek, who doesn't seem to understand that saying absolutely nothing is always an option, opened his big mouth in response to mounting complaints. In an interview with Vogue, Razek said he wouldn't have trans in the fashion show because the show is a fantasy. He said, "They tried to do a plus-size fashion show in the past. No one had any interest in it, still don't." He said, scandal ensued, Razek resigned, and that year it did indeed hire its first trans model, Valentia Sampaio, but for a catalog shoot, not the fashion show itself. Well, if that's the direction the company's president at the time wanted to take things, then that is his right. Sure, it's not politically correct to outright say things like this in current year, but it really should be. And companies and people and corporations should be able to make choices without getting slandered in the media by leftists and called offensive and racist for no reason. You're allowed to direct your company how you see fit, and if they want to use real girls as their models, that's their right too. Really, it's ludicrous to suggest we force diversity onto people in private companies like this. I mean, who gives these people at BuzzFeed the right to boss everyone around anyway? I really hate this assumed authority. Reminds me of how repulsive and wrong the assumption about diversity was earlier, about it always being better. Let's also not forget, diversity is also code for these guys. When SJWs say they want more diversity, that's a signal saying, hey, we want less white people and less straights, and less men too. And for this example, they also want to get less skinny people involved. Frankly, it's amazing that the company has withstood as many scandals as it has. In 2014, it released a lingerie line called Body, whose ads featured the perfect body scrawled across images of ultra-thin models, because God forbid some hot chicks who are skinny get on a model shoot. Its Go East collection included a mesh teddy called Sexy Little Geisha, which came with a matching mini fan. The fashion show has consistently been accused of cultural appropriation, which is made all the more offensive by how few models of color they actually hire. So here we get more skinny shaming, and finally, cultural appropriation claims come up. Nice, because why not, huh? This writer has already pulled out every other trick in the SJW handbook, so let's go ahead and call everyone racist now too. Also, it's important to keep in mind that cultural appropriation is just another way to attack white people as well. It's not cultural appropriation the other way around when minorities cop a feel for our English or white or American culture, like for example when this BuzzFeed writer chooses to speak and write in English instead of using, say, her native tongue and Indian language, and she can also copy and paste and use all our other American English and white people inventions too, like the internet, smartphones, democracy, vaccinations, the wheel, fire, and so on. But God forbid a fashion show has some Asian influences in it. I highly doubt the East Asian people of the world would even care about that. In fact, in my experience, people usually see these influences of theirs in Western media as a high compliment, but leave it to the SJWs to complain on behalf of minorities who were never even offended in the first place. What do you guys think? Should this Victoria's Secret fashion show have been canceled? Why do you think the SJWs hate pretty women like this so much? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.